Hey guys, it's been a while. I'm coming to you from a kitten-chewed microphone to talk to you a little bit sort of about the book, but more about things that I just find really cool that actually sort of have to do with the book. Maybe I should just explain. Before I do, if you wind up having a good time, you have to promise me that you're going to like and subscribe because that's what helps us. I am, at this particular moment anyway, an indie author, and so that helps authors get support, helps people find new authors. It's really helpful. So thank you. So this book that I'm releasing started out actually as a kind of passion project. I was actually in the midst of trying to write an ADHD book and was just not digging it. I wasn't having fun with it. And so I figured that I was going to write a project that actually married things that I liked. And I picked three things, and those three things were medicine, herbalism, and folklore. And it kind of took on a life of its own, and now it's a book, and now I'm working on revisions and all that great stuff. But folklore has always been a huge part of my life. When I was a little kid and I got to go to the library. Don't forget about libraries, by the way. Y'all are sleeping on libraries. Go to the library. I used to take my library card and just mow through as many folklore books as I possibly could. I've always said that if money was no object and I could do whatever I wanted, I would probably travel from country to country learning about folklore and just putting together this massive book of creatures. So this was a lot of fun for me. Writing this book meant that I got to do a lot of research on mythological creatures, on folklore that I'd never even heard of before. It was a real blast. And so I thought that it would be a lot of fun to share some of these creatures with you. Sometimes they will be creatures that are not in my book. In fact, eventually, probably most times they will not be. But right now, today, there are going to be three creatures that are actually in the book. Even though I put my own spin on them. We're talking about Yacuruna, trolls, and Succubi. So a lot of people have never heard of Yacuruna. Actually, before this book, I had never heard of them. They are actually a South American creature, specifically from the Amazon. Some sources merely refer to them as water creatures, while others refer to them as deities, as gods. They're described as hairy, with deformed feet and backwards heads. And what I think is kind of hilarious is anytime that I try to find artwork that depicts Yacurunas online, they never have backwards heads, and I'm not sure why that is. Maybe they just don't trust that people can see a backwards head and not explode. I'm not sure, but it doesn't exist out there. But despite the fact that these dudes apparently look like hairy fish with a penchant for ignoring you, it's said that one of their most popular moves is actually to seduce young women. They usually do this by masking their appearance and only showing their true selves once the women are too far in to be able to get away. This basically describes every guy that I hooked up with in my 20s. What are you going to do? Strangely, even though these creatures are obviously a part of folklore in South America, it's actually kind of hard to find a lot of folklore on them. What we do know is super, super fascinating. They apparently ride big black crocodiles like canoes and live in underwater cities that are built out of fish scales and pearls. And it's actually possible that they can give away their knowledge. They're apparently extremely knowledgeable about healing, and they will give it to village shamans if the shamans make valuable sacrifices or just ask really, really nicely. I did find one kind of neat story about a Yacuruna, and it comes from Peru. So this happened in the native village of, and I am going to completely ruin this name. I am looking at it and I'm still going to ruin it. Shimpiyaku? Sorry. But in it, there was a girl who was super pretty, because they always are. These people never look like a foot. And she needed to get married, but none of the men in her village were doing it for her. She had been saying no to all of them. So anyway, her parents were like, aren't you worried about being a spinster at 12 years old with 23 cats? Because this was a really long time ago and it was okay to get married at that point, I guess. And the daughter kind of ignored that and responded. They never really say how she responded. I'm imagining that she threatened to get a septum piercing and flick them off with both hands. I'm not sure. Anyway, during all of this, the girl would go down to the river next to the village every night, and she would sit in the moonlight and she would imagine her perfect man and what he would look like, how he would talk to her, how they would interact, how their love would be beautiful and amazing. And one day, to her surprise, it seemed that the river gave her this man that she had been imagining. And it happened every night, and they got closer and closer and talked about everything and became more and more in love, to the point where she was coming home with a grin on her face, and her parents didn't know what the deal was, but they could definitely tell that she was in love, and they were very happy to hear this. They wanted to meet this girl's new suitor, and she promised that they would one day. So then one day, the girl finally agrees to bring her man home. Her parents are thrilled. They're just like, oh, thank God someone wants you. But Grandma's not buying it, because Grandma's been old and she's been around for a long time, and she just is out of fucks to give. So she's like, we'll see. And the guy comes over, and he charms everyone in the house but Grandma. Grandma's like, something's off about you, bro. I don't know what it is. I don't like it, but something's off. So that night, as the two walk off together towards the river, Grandma follows. And as they get deeper and deeper into the forest, or into the jungle, I suppose I should say, the moon starts to disappear. It starts to get darker. And just as she's starting to figure that maybe she's overreacting a little, she gets the surprise of her life, as her granddaughter's new suitor turns into a Yacuruna before her very eyes, grabs the granddaughter and pulls her into the river, never to be seen again. Grandma runs back to the village and says, they took my granddaughter, I need help. And they search the rivers for what feels like ages, but never find the girl. And this goes on for 2 days. As this is happening, the girl's mother actually starts to have dreams where she's talking to her daughter, and her daughter is happy. She's alive. She's now living underwater with the Yacuruna, and she promises her mother that there will be gifts for her when she wakes the following morning. And this happens a couple times, that when they check by the river, they will find unmarked gifts of different kinds of river stuffs, lots of food for the village to eat. Finally, after a couple more days of this, the mother loses her mind with grief, just stumbles down to the river in the dead of night. Grandma follows far behind, because we still haven't learned how to talk about our problems as family. Upon reaching the edge of the river, Grandma and Mom see the daughter hovering above the water with her Yacuruna suitor behind her. And this time the Yacuruna actually looks like a red demon riding his crocodile canoe. And the mother begs to go with them because she can't live without her daughter any longer. They take the mother, disappear back under the water, and none of them are ever seen again. For the record, the Yacuruna in my book is named Philip, and he's actually a really nice guy. So, but if you want to see these stories for yourself, if you want to kind of read the things that I found about it, all the links for all of these things are in the description. Moving on. So troll folklore is way more prevalent and way more expansive. I don't think that there isn't a person out there who hasn't at least heard the word troll, and I'm sure that if I started asking you to describe a story that has to do with trolls, you could probably think of one. Right off the top of my head, I'm thinking of the Billy Goat Scruff. And for that reason, I am not going to cover every single little story I can find about trolls. In fact, I probably won't cover any of them, because I think the most popular ones we all know, and the least popular ones just take a really long time to tell. So think of your favorite one, whether it be one that is knobby and gross and lives under a bridge, or one that has cute neon hair and a little jewel in its tummy. Doesn't matter. All trolls are good trolls, or all trolls are trolls. They're not exactly good. We'll get into that in a minute. So trolls actually got their start in Norse and Scandinavian mythology. And though it was never really agreed upon what they actually looked like, it was agreed that they're assholes to humans. They prefer living in the mountains and amongst rocks, and they prefer to be left alone. They've had a number of names over the years, including Jotun and Huldrefolk, and they've always been known for causing mischief. And weirdly, it sounds like trolls were actually used as a way to keep Christians in line for a while. They were said to track Christians down by the scent of their blood, and the story goes that trolls ran Norway until the Christians showed up and drove them out. So now there's a resounding hatred for the ones responsible for their displacement, and that's why trolls throw boulders at churches in retaliation. I haven't heard of that happening recently, but, apparently this was a thing. I don't know. I didn't really look up to see whether or not churches were regularly being knocked down by boulders, but apparently this was enough of a problem that they explained it with trolls. If you're looking for like a deep dive into this, you came to the wrong channel. What's also kind of funny is that no one can ever seem to agree upon whether trolls are big or small. Most say that they are big, but some say that they're teeny tiny. The Huldrefolk, the ones that I were talking about before, are actually supposed to be little people that live in the hills and cause mischief for anybody who tries to upset that land. In my book's case, I decided that I was going to go with a very, very tall, very stupid troll. I named him Njal. You would think that I would know how to say that name since I used it, but I might be saying it wrong. Okay, sorry again, but I guess he fits very well into folklore regardless of which side of the aisle you're on. So, Succubi. I'm going to have to be very careful about how I talk about this one because if YouTube doesn't like it, I'm going to have issues. I'm not monetized yet. This is a tiny channel, but you never know what they might pull. So we're going to be a little careful how we talk about this. So the succubus is often shown in folklore to be a beautiful and alluring woman who seduces her prey, usually a man, and then she mates with them because she needs a man's leavings in order to reproduce and survive. The succubus will often go for as many rounds as she can, draining the man's life force each time she does. The first and most famous succubus is actually Lilith, Adam's first wife in Jewish myth. And in those stories, she also has a thing for stealing and eating children, and she's well known for getting down and dirty with the angel Samael before ultimately telling Adam to kick rocks. So many cultures actually have a succubus in some way or another. They'll usually have different names, but they all kind of have the same concept. It's a woman who seduces a man and through doing stuff with them actually tends to steal their life force and eventually wind up killing them. And I could start going into a big rant about how this goes all the way back to ancient fucking Sumeria, which means that we have been trying to control women and their sexuality and talk down to so-called sexually promiscuous women for literal centuries. And we could also talk about how it's really interesting that less people know about the incubus. There is a man version of this, but the incubus is nowhere near as reviled and nowhere near as prevalent in mythology, and actually even has a pretty good band named after it. We could talk about all of that. I'm not going to do it, but we could talk about it. Also, just a funny little factoid, I have a succubus in my book that is 100% correct according to folklore, and that was 100% by accident. I actually did not know as much about succubi when I wrote the book as I did after, obviously, when I started doing the research for the book, and I found out that I nailed it, so that was neat. So there you have it. 3 monsters that are going to be in my book, and I find them super duper fascinating. I would love to hear more of the monsters and creatures in mythology that you find super interesting. So if there are any others that you would like me to cover, please go ahead and drop them in the comments, share them with me. I would love to do a little bit more research on them and get to talk about more stories, more background, and just kind of continuing to do this. This is a lot of fun for me. So yeah, and if you had a lot of fun, hang out with me some more. Make sure that you like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.